Manuela Lara is an artist from Colombia, living in Bogota, originally from Cali, who is the creator and curator of the VIVAS collection, and she'll tell you many of the details about that, but the reason, so actually I probably should introduce myself. I'm Ryan Quick, I'm the academic director for the Center for Positive Leadership. And the center, we brought Manuela to Louisville to share her work with us because her VIVAS collection, which has been shown in various museums and brought around the United States as well as in Colombia and on television shows and so forth, is because she highlights women indigenous leaders who are making a huge difference in the communities in which they're a part. And her process for capturing them in art is one that inspires as much as the work of the women themselves. And so we thought it would be great to bring her here to share with us what she's done. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce, first we'll show the video and then we'll have Manuela come up.
VIVAS es un proyecto que busca exaltar a la mujer líder en Colombia.
Ese llamado de llegar a un ser líder, eso fue algo propio, como un don. En mi cara tengo un símbolo. Amo a los abuelitos, porque detrás de ellos hay una historia que hay que ser contada, porque nos hace falta aprender mucho de ellos. También quiero representar como esa naturalidad de la mujer.
Señor, gracias porque te llevaste el niño, pero te quiero pedir que le entregues todos los jóvenes y los niños de Buenaventura. Quisiera que se hubieran representado los manglares.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel so blessed to be here at the University of Louisville. I still don't know how to say Louisville properly. I'm trying my best. I want to give thanks to Ryan, to Rami, Chari, my friend who made this possible, and to everyone who came to spend this precious moment where I'm going to be happily sharing about my work as an artist and my experience through portrait and life. So my name is Manuela Lara. I am a visual artist from Colombia. I graduated with a bachelor in visual arts back in Bogota, Colombia. And my purpose is to creatively inspire others to reconnect with their inner beauty and their stories. I would like to start by sharing a story with you. It was December 2008. I was on vacations from university, visiting my parents and my family in Cali, Colombia, the city where I grew up. The vacation didn't last very long because my parents got divorced. My mother and my 8-year-old sister moved with me from Cali to Bogota, the capital of Colombia, where I had just started my bachelor in visual arts. We were all broken inside. We left behind a big house full of memories to start a new journey that felt very painful and unknown. We got in the car, the Honda Civic that gave us so much joy, where we used to sing our favorite family songs. Our minds were blurry, and there was not really time to process what was happening. All I remember is waking up very early, saying goodbye to my father, and getting into a car for a 10-hour drive with my mom and my little sister, and what fitted from that old house in the car. Just a few objects. Some of my sister's toys, a few albums. It was so fast. When we arrived to Bogota, we realized that my photo album, the big green old style album, wasn't there. I asked my mom for it, and she says that she couldn't find it. It was lost. We never understood what happened with the album. So many theories came out, but the only certainty was that we never saw the album again. The album was not only important because there were all the first pictures of my life on earth, including the ones with my mom pregnant and my dad kissing her womb, and the very first house where I lived that was full of love and earthy colors, but also because they always took care of doing every picture so special of my childhood birthdays and that were portrayed there. Every birthday I had a new set of matching clothes, and you could see in that album that no matter where my parents were living, if they had money or not, if they were happy with what they were living or not, they will always give me the best. They will always give the best to their daughter and make every moment so valuable. So missing the album was never seeing those images again. And we kept that pain for years, never knowing what to do about it, just complaining. I didn't know what to do about it either. Years later, I started accidentally painting. My focus in art was never painting, but I met Nicolas, the professor at the human figure drawing class, and he said, "Why don't you come to my live class painting? You don't have to register. Simply come as my guest." So I accepted, but I was looking for the materials the other day. After the first class, where we all did a portrait, I fell in love. I really enjoyed all of that semester painting with live models, and I never stopped painting again. My favorite part was that honestly, I didn't really have an ambition with painting. So it was just about enjoying. After doing so many paintings in class, sometimes one on top of the other, in the same block of wood, low-budget university decisions, anyway, I realized how much I enjoyed painting people, and it made me want to make paintings of my childhood and family too. So I had to call my aunts and my grandparents and ask them to look for the girl photographs so that they could lend me from their albums. Every time that every image that we found was so precious that I wanted to make something beautiful from it. It was just a few images. And while I was recreating the paintings, my parents started telling me about these moments that they captured in the photos. And art became our meeting place. I started recording audios of their narratives and making printmaking drawings and sculptures with their stories. The process of recording my family's story from the photos they did have had me constantly trying to reconstruct in my memory what had been my green photo album. I was trying to remember the images and stories, wondering about the way the photographs were organized. Here are some things I remembered. I remember that in the first series of photos, there were many blue and gray things. And there was my mom, my mustachioed, I don't know how to say that word, that, and my cousin Natalia. Then, if I'm not mistaken, there was a series in which I had just been born, in which some new characters appear: a white bear, 3 times bigger and fatter than me, a little black doll, tiny wool clothes knitted by my grandma Betty, and above all of these were lots of hugs and lots of green and red. Right after that, I think there were the photos of the baptism in the church. This series was very old, almost metallic. We were all dressed very elegantly. Many arms were crossed, and a stream of water fell on my face. Towards the third part of the album, it fragmented into a small series of family reunions and happy birthdays. The more I tried to reconstruct that space and time in my head, the more I became aware of the gaps and questions I had. I wanted to find answers that went beyond what was in the lost photos. And one thing that was clear, I couldn't do it alone. Why? Because I didn't remember anything. Because my only reference for years regarding that stage had been precisely those photographs that I no longer had. All of this was going through my head one day as I was talking to my mother. She confessed to me how much pain the loss of the album caused her. And as if she knew what I needed, she began to remember out loud. And I was aware at that moment of the richness in which she was saying. Her words were answers that I wanted and needed to know, but at the same time, the answers generated new questions. The same day, it became clear that I needed my parents to help me with what I most wanted to do with my project, to complete, to rebuild, to reconfigure an empty space in my life. And who better than them, the protagonists of the story, to guide me in the process. As a family, we created all of these meaningful images. We spent so many hours remembering with my father. We even traveled to the countryside for a week just to create together, and we talked for hours. My sister drew, my grandparents narrated their fascinating memories, and I was simply amazed to see that our family was not only broken hearts and that emptiness that leaves you with the feeling that everything was taken away. I could go deep, not only into my story, but their stories, their childhood, the things that made them who they are. And as the colors and lines of our lives were coming from the inside, we started to heal. The loss of the album was actually the gift for creating beauty out of pain. So life is not what one lived, but what one remembers and how one remembers it in order to tell it. That's a phrase that I really love from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and that really, I feel connected with the story that I just shared with you. When I look back, I can see how I was unconsciously living my purpose of creating a meaningful space for my family, a space where we could deeply connect to each other in our best, most beautiful selves. I can see how the purpose will eventually guide me into the ideation and creation of VIVAS as well. When we live from a place of purpose, life both prepares us and moves us to a place that is exactly where we need to be. We are then able to answer our own questions and to help lift and empower those around us. At some point in my life, I was struggling with the idea that I had to choose between being a successful artist and being successful in my private life. Nobody told me that. It's just something that was in my mind for some reason. The VIVAS project helped me to find the answers I needed. Let me tell you first about VIVAS, what it is, and then how it came to be. VIVAS is a series of intimate and personal portraits of women, female social leaders from Colombia. To be a social leader in Colombia requires great bravery. It is especially difficult to be a female social leader in Colombia because when women become leaders, they increase their power to shape and make decisions about their own lives and their environment, deepening their self-awareness and self-knowledge. In Colombia, recovering female leadership narratives is particularly important due to the structural violence that women have suffered, the sociopolitical, economical, inequal rights, and gender biases that they have historically experienced. These variables, added to the severe impacts of the armed conflict, have transcended all areas in their daily lives. Once I read an article about 200 social leaders were killed, and it made me act to think that I didn't even know their names. They hadn't been given even that dignity. I wanted to give some of these women names. I felt inspired to do something for them and to let others know them as well. I also wanted to learn from them and be like them. So these here are some of the articles about the leaders in Colombia being death threat and being killed. Colombia is probably the most dangerous place in the world to be a leader. I wanted to show you here. So Colombia was the deadliest country in the world for human rights defender in 2022. That's crazy because after the peace final Simon agreement, we thought that things were going to become better. And in some points, yes, we are speaking about topics that we never did. We did the Commission of Truth and very important movements for the country, but still there is so much work to get to make. Colombia was the deadliest country in the world for human rights defenders in 2022, accounting for 186 killings, or 46% of the global total registered last year, according to the latest report from the International Human Rights from Frontline Defenders. This is an article of The Guardian newspaper. Frontline Defenders found that killings of rights defenders across the globe increased in 2022. With a total of 401 deaths across 26 different countries, compared with 358 deaths in 33 countries registered in 2021. Colombia saw more than 3 times the number of human rights murders than Ukraine last year, which was the country with the second highest number of right defenders killed in 2022, with 50 registered cases. In 2021, Colombia also topped Frontline Defenders charts, registering 138 right defenders killed. So that's one of the articles. The other one is from Colombia Reports. Colombia, by far the world's most dangerous country for human rights defenders. So these articles highlight some of the official death threats and deaths in assassinations, but not everything's here. So imagine the pain for the country. For the second year running, Colombia has tipped the most dangerous countries in the world for environmentalists. 65 environmental activists were killed in the South American nation in 2020, a year marked by the coronavirus pandemic. It continued to happen during the pandemic even. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to portray women and to portray female social leaders, because if you imagine if it's hard to be a leader everywhere, imagine how it is to do it in Colombia and how it is when you're a female leader. Thus, as if putting together a puzzle, VIVAS emerged. The protagonists of this artistic series will be social leaders, who represent their multiplicity of struggles that these women exert in their territories. Territories that cross from the Guajira desert to the sea breezes of the Pacific coast in Buenaventura to the colorful mountains of Sutatausa. So this is the map of Colombia, and I wanted to show you here where the locations of the women that I work with are. So Buenaventura is right in the Pacific. It's the port. It's the place where almost everything that we have in Colombia comes in and out. And therefore, when you think of a port, you will think of a wealthy place, but not. This is a port, as many Latin American ports or other countries, where poverty and really bad situations arise, and the government has really forgotten about this place. Riohacha, it's the top north of the country, is the last part of the South American continent actually, and that's in La Guajira. And it's a desert area where the Wayuu indigenous community lives. And Sutatausa, Cundinamarca is right in the middle. It's like 2 hours from Bogota, the capital, and it's a mountain place. So I wanted to show really diverse and different places because I want the artworks to represent our diversity, who we are, and to change the view inside and outside of Colombia of all the things, all of the things, good things that we are and that we represent, and all of the richness that we have, not only in nature, but in our people. I wanted this woman will have one thing in common. They will be makers, managers of change for their communities. In all of the other aspects, they will be as diverse as possible. Women of different ages, types of education, professions, trades, ways of understanding leadership. Among the 33 women in the first stage of the project, there are educators, there are environmental leaders, there are artisans, they are dancers. So I wanted to show a very wide perspective of what it means to be a leader, and how it's not only, normally when we think on a leader, or at least that's what happened to me before, I will think in someone of a certain age, right, of certain words. But here you will see a very wide group. And so this is Catherine. She's an environmental leader. Yeah, great, thank you. So when I portrayed Catherine, she was on her 20s. She's now 30-something, and she's an environmental leader. So for her portrait, she wanted to have elements of the nature in the plants from her region, so it's all endemic plants from La Guajira. And her work is about exchanging. She has a project called Threads for Ma. Ma means Mother Earth for the Wayuunaiki tribe. So she's not indigenous, but she works with the Wayuu tribe. So what she does is that with Threads for Ma, she exchanges threads for garbage. So the communities are very full of garbage because of minery, because of many issues. So she wants them to clean their communities. So she exchanges the threads and they go, she gives them the threads so the communities pick up all of the garbage and clean their spaces. And then with those threads, the women, they build the mochilas. I don't know if you have seen the Wayuu mochilas. It's like the typical bags from Colombia, very colorful. They weave that, and then after she helps them to even sell the artwork. So it's a whole circle of economy, of environmental, and she does other things. But that's mainly like her main project. So that's one example of leadership. So they're territorial defenders, and each of them is, with their particularities, unique and indispensable for the construction of peace and future in their communities. From an artistic and visual conception, I found in the portrait to be a medium that allowed me to enter into their intimacy and tell who they are beyond their achievements as their heroism. The portrait allows us to see our humanity in the other. Together, we share our stories, and I ask them questions about their stories, their dreams, their loved ones, the breaking points in their lives, and above all, how they saw themselves, what they liked the most about their personality, what were their favorite parts of their body and face, how would they describe themselves, what made them unique. These were just some of the questions we developed together. This process, apart from being the essence of their portraits, allowed us to discover a common trait. These women have dedicated most of their lives to working for others, and the VIVAS project was the first time they were led to look inward in this way, to think about themselves deeply. These were inspiring days in which we planned every detail for their portraits. Each one thought about how they wanted to look, the way they would look at the camera, the position of the different parts of their bodies, the hairstyle, the clothes, the makeup, or the lack of it. All would be elements that would describe them in their authenticity and origin. When I was photographing them in these moments of sincere openness, of completing glances and self-recognition, they not only became part of VIVAS, they invited me to feel a part of their story. And through these portraits, they decided how they wanted all of us to know them. I didn't decide how to paint them or who they are. We were united in the process, and they told their own stories. They allowed us not only to admire them for their daily work, which was so full of meaning, but they also led us into their intimacy. The work is the result of a Van Dyke Brown alternative photography process, a 19th century technique printed on handmade paper made from plant fibers and fruits native to the regions, later intermingled with drawings made with natural pigments and oils. The handmade papers return the photograph processes to its historical heritage, making each piece unique and irrepeatable. The project exalts not only the images, but also the texture and context added by the paper as a medium. The natural fibers that make up the paper used in each woman's portrait connects with the region each leader is from, whether it's from the Chontaduro for Buenaventura or the Yute for La Guajira. With the materiality, what I wanted to do is to feel very special. So I wanted to make sure that they feel that each of their portraits was like truly unique, and it was taken care with so much care, so every detail was very well chosen, and they even chose the fibers that I use for the papers. So they are the ones that said, I want my portrait to be in the fiber with this fruit because it means my territory. By being female leaders, they are women that are very attached and connected to earth and to their own lands. So I wanted the paper to represent the territory and to make them feel proud with this with this delicate process that we did with all of the techniques. In this trip to their territories where we met, we had conversations for hours. They helped me be aware of the close relationship that each of them has with their territory and the elements that compose it. From these conversations, the pictorial interventions of the portraits emerged. They responded to the questions: what elements of nature do you identify with and why? What colors have a meaning in your life? And from their choices, I created compositions based on their cosmogonies, symbologies, and self-image. In the painting intervention, there is an interpretation of each one's universe. There is a point of view, recreation, imagination, and above all, there is construction. So this old lady, Elena, she wanted her portrait with her hands?
Yes, hands.
With her hands from her land. So I get to even have the privilege to go to her house in the countryside and take a photo of her hands. So it's our hairs from her house. And she also wanted to have a sheep here back, and she's very proud of her hands and all of the work that she's done through her hands. So she's a weaver for years. She teaches to the new generations how to weave and preserve that beautiful knowledge. And yeah, I think it was great doing this portrait because it's one of the very few that I did at their houses. Normally we will meet at a place, let's say, especially for security and that stuff, we will meet at a very, like for example, at a university for taking the pictures. But for her, I took the portrait at her house because it was kind of hard to move her around. So, and it was so natural, and the way that she said, like, I want my hands to stand out and that we could make it together, I think that was very powerful to me. She's from Sutatausa, from the mountains that I show in the map. So these are images from the workshops that we did with them. So it was a very beautiful moment where they could share their stories, being really open. You know, I've always been, I always wanted women to empower between each other, and I think that's what we could do with our encounters. Like it was a beautiful moment to share experiences, to listen to each other, and I think that's what we are called to do as women. So I even have to learn about makeup and about putting dresses and everything, because it was just them, me, one camera, one light, and that's it. Very simple, but very like the powerful part was like our connection, the connection we developed. VIVAS is above all a work that was through and lived from the collective, whose richness lives in the characters that compose it. Women leaders, artisans, filmmakers, journalists, curators, friends, family, and countless other sensitive people who have invaluably enriched the project. As an artist and a woman, I want to honor women leaders. It is my interest to give them their connection that society rarely gives them. I want to contribute to highlight the importance of their dedicated work and their inspiring identities from a dignifying perspective. In the same way that the women leaders in their story act collectively in their daily lives, giving their existence to the well-being of those around them, we could think of them, admire them, take care of them, and protect them collectively. The project was born from the intuition that if I were to heal and grow as a woman, it was necessary to do it hand in hand with other admirable women and fighters, women in whom I will find the complicity and the unique feeling of sisterhood that is experienced when you recognize yourself in another woman and see that her story is also yours. This applies across the board to all of us as humans, not just as women. Anyone can look at this woman and find your own story in them, and the courage to be kind of the leader who inspires, impacts your community for good. As I mentioned earlier, at some point in my life, I was struggling with the idea that I had to choose between being a successful artist and being successful in my private life. The VIVAS project helped me find the answers I needed. I saw how they were not just community leaders, but mothers, wives, sisters, friends. I learned that one can be so many things, and spending time with the woman made me realize the beauty of community empowerment and not only feeling lonely anymore with these questions and answers. I have told you about the project and what it came to be. Allow me to introduce you to a few of the women. Yolanda is from Buenaventura, the port. For more than 16 years, I've been working on my dream, which consists of helping the children of Buenaventura to get out of the oblivion and the lack of opportunities to which they have been subjected to, due to the internal conflict of our country and the few guarantees offered by the government. Throughout all of these years, my mission began while I was preaching God's work as a pastor of my community. I could not understand how Buenaventura, the largest port in Colombia, in a place where there is such abundance of everything, poverty is so prevalent that a child has to live days on an empty stomach. Since then, I wake up every day to change this. I'm currently the director and founder of FUNSARA, a social love and restoration foundation, where I provide formal education and food assistance to more than 1,000 children annually. I have been able to create four schools and an integral development center attended by children from SLUS such as Lleras, Viento Libre, Triunfo, and Nueva Frontera. Those are like some of the rough neighborhoods in Buenaventura. And the story of Yolanda really touches me because so she only had one son. She had it with an African man that she met in Cali. She used to live in Cali at that time, the city where I grew up. And then suddenly his son started to get involved into a drug group, into a really bad business. And then she started to notice it because he will start to offer her things. He will start to tell her like, hey ma, what do you buy you? Don't I buy you a house or a big car? And she was like, I don't want anything from that money. And then after a time, she started to be afraid for his security and everything. His son was killed. Her son was killed. So that was a really breaking moment in her life. She lives now with her granddaughter and her grandson, the children from her son. And then after that moment, what really impresses me is her courage and the way that she turned out that situation to decide that she wanted to take care of the children and teenagers at Buenaventura, and that's what she does. She's really a hard worker woman, and she really has a heart for taking care. That's why she wanted her hands in her heart, because of all of the love that she gives. And she also wanted the mangroves, which is the fruit that she says that keeps her, like with the mangroves and the acai, the fruit that keeps her with so much energy. So she wanted to have that energy in her portrait. And purple, because purple represents royalty. So she feels like a part of the royalty with her, like God's royalty with the work that she does. And then, yeah, I was amazed to meet her, to spend time. We even made the TV series, the one I showed you at the beginning. This is the trailer for the TV series that we did with the project, with a great group of people, where we could show 3 chapters, each with one of the women's story in each place, combined with the story of how we made the artworks. So it's been a project where it's not only me. I realized that if I wanted to do something big, I had to open and to do it with more people, and that's been really enriching my life too. And the other story that I wanted to show, so the other story is Susana. So she says, I would like to be seen in the portrait very colorful, very happy, surrounded by mountains, but I also want the grandmas to be there. I want their hands to be knitting, and I want them to be in dialogue through the threads. I also see calm, the calm of Sutatausa, my town. Therefore, I want to represent the naturality of my town and of the woman. Her dream and her reason to do everything is to exalt the culture that is present through the weaves and the hands of the woman from Sutatausa. She loves to work for her town, so that more young people work for the construction of community and the conservation of ancestral handmade works. And I really love her because she will go with her work. She will dress up as her grandma, which was a peasant from the countryside, and she will do it for like getting more like easily connected to the weavers that are old, like Elena. So she will do it just for that. So she will completely dress up like her, and I think we saw it in the first video. And then she will invite those women to be part of a group that she created, an organization of weavers, and she will even help them to travel around the world with the works that they do with sewing. So it's really beautiful what she does and how she empowers them to continue doing the handmade work. And she is very young, and she even is, she studied in Bogota, but she always wanted to come back to her hometown, and that's what she did. So I really admire that, because as I say, when you think on leaders, you normally think on someone of a certain age, and no, it's beautiful. And for them, having these portraits like really inspire them to continue doing what they're doing. Like they feel like, okay, I'm now one of the VIVAS, so I should better continue doing the great job. VIVAS is above all a work that has thought and lived from the collective, whose richness lives in the characters and Okay. The project was born from the intuition that if I were to heal and grow as a woman, it was necessary to do it in hand with one other admirable woman and fighters. So this morning we were doing a workshop on art and leadership, and it was very interesting because we got to see how storytelling really connects us with the person that we're working with. So with making the right questions, spending quality time, we could really make sure that we know the person that we're talking to, and I really connect that with this phrase. It's an enemy is someone whose story you haven't heard. Let's make sure that no one is an enemy simply because we don't take the time to know their story. I will finish by sharing some images. Oh, this image here is really important because it's completely the opposite of what I want to do with portrait. So this is a portrait of someone who doesn't even have a sight. And for me, making a portrait is not to ask the other person to sit and just draw them or paint them, but to actually understand that they are a person, an active voice that you want to hear and translate, and they're giving you their time and their trust in what you're doing. So for me, what is very important in portraiting is to show how the people want to be seen. Not only how I see them, but it's a mix of the two things. How they want to be seen and how I see them. So this is an image of the process, taking the photographs. As I said, it was very beautiful to travel around the world, spending quality time with them, sometimes staying in their houses, making it very intimate, what was really brought us to create the portraits. And yeah, these are the questions that we talk in our workshops. So this is them during the workshops. This is the creation of the paper that I talked to you about. This is the workshop. Each of them, I wanted to make sure that each of them has their portrait in their house. So they have it, and one of the most special moments was when we get back to their places and exhibit it in their hometowns. And all of their families came and see, imagine their husbands, their sons, daughters, enjoying those portraits. That was really important for me and for them. These are them with their originals. Feeling very proud. And this story that I want to finish with, it's the story of Angelica. She gave me the permission to do this, so that's what I will share it. But she's been in death threat for a long time, and she wanted her portrait with birds, like typical birds that are from the Guajira or that live there. And she wanted birds because birds represent freedom. So the portrait is a way to say, I want that freedom that we don't have. So I want to read what she said. The cactus will represent me, but at the same time, also the bird, a bird. Why the cactus? Because of the resistance it has in the face of all adversities. Even without having soil, it continues to resist. Because sometimes one takes it out and carries out, but he's still alive. And the bird for freedom, the freedom it has to come, go, sink, to develop its life. One of the things I would like to see in the drawing is blue. The color blue identifies me a lot because the immensity for us is blue and the sea is blue and also the sky is blue. So I guess she wants that immensity and that freedom in her life, and that's part of the reason why I made this project. Yep. Thank you.